think oftentimes when having conversations with people who are shifting and jumping into start their own thing, you hear a number of different reasons, but for me it was just, I wanted to see what I was capable of. I wanted to get outside of my comfort zone. My name is Chad Easterling, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Obsidianworks Creative. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, Vailsburg area. I am the youngest of three by my mom. Shout out to Lucille. Growing up with two older brothers was amazing. It gave me the opportunity and first-hand experience of how I should be conducting myself. In regards to profession, I really only wanted to play basketball. That was it. So yes, I did play basketball for a very long time. I did play in college. However, from a really young age, the other piece that I would say is my mom was really, really big into education. My mom was an educator. She had a really amazing way of making sure to find things that we were interested in. And so for me, somehow I got really interested in not just the sciences, but I was interested in, engineering. That was really my alternate option, because as I played basketball, and while I did feel like I was good and I was athletic and all of that stuff, as I got older, I just felt like I was either underskilled or undersized. And oftentimes, a lot of people that play sometimes don't want to be honest with themselves. And I'm gonna keep it a buck. And that's just what it was for me. My mom used to always take us to a lot of HBCU tours as we grew up. But once I got to visit my brother at FAMU, I was like, oh, I'm going to an HBCU. It did not matter who was recruiting me. I ended up choosing Hampton. And in regards to what I majored in, I did nothing tied to STEM. I did nothing tied to engineering. I ended up going into sport management. Surprise. While I went into sport management, it still ended up getting me to where I am today. The way that the sport management department worked at Hampton was you had to do internships in order to graduate. So what I did was I went online and I applied to every single internship that I could find. I also applied to jobs that I knew I had no business applying to. Going a step further, I printed every single application out that I applied to. Growing up, what my mom and dad always said was nobody's really gonna wanna help you if you're not helping yourself. So you have to show that you are putting in the effort. I take this folder, I go to all of my coaches. Shout out to Adrian Walters. He takes the folder, he opens it up, he looks at all of the places I applied to, and he goes, oh, you applied to Nike. I know somebody at Nike. He literally shot an email on the spot. That is how I got to Nike. I was at Nike for a little over a decade. I was a sponge. I had no problem putting time on people's calendar, hearing about who they are, what they do. I was really, intentional about trying to make sure I'm delivering on the things that I'm talking about and the things that I'm saying I'm gonna do. I think oftentimes when you're having conversations with people who are shifting and jumping into other lanes, roles, companies, or going out to start their own thing, you hear a number of different reasons, but for me it was just, I wanted to see what I was capable of. I wanted to get outside of my comfort zone. I wanted to learn other industries, sectors, ways of working, philosophies, and that's really what made me even think about the idea of stepping outside of Nike. In order for me to tell the origin story of Obsidian, I actually have to go all the way back to the beginning and being home and being in Newark. While playing basketball with the Rams, I had to be, I think I was either in 8th or 9th grade. I ended up meeting with Michael B. Jordan. From that time hooping, we just always stayed close, always stayed connected. We were always talking about finding ways to work together. And so 2015 is when the conversation started. I didn't end up leaving Nike until 2019. Those 4 years was really just us talking about it, strategizing, figuring out what it could be, what it could look like, and all that type of stuff. And we really wanted to be intentional about that decision. And so that was really the origin of Obsidian. To be a culture-powered agency, it really means to be fueled and inspired by everything around you, right? Like, I think one of the biggest things that we talk about, and I think a lot of people, especially Black folks, we're not a monolith. There's not one thing that drives us. There's not one thing that inspires us, right? Like, some of us like art, some of us like gaming, some of us like music, cooking, fashion. There are so many different facets to culture. And as long as, you're curious, as long as you're being a sponge, that is really what it means to be culture powered. When people talk about wanting to run a company or wanting to be a CEO, one, I think it's amazing, right? I tip my hat to anybody who wants to step out on their own and do their own thing. There's a lot of additional things that go into being, a CEO and a leader. When you're freelancing, more or less, you're just worrying about yourself. When you think about going into being a CEO and being an entrepreneur, it immediately jumps into like, all right, I have a team of X amount of people. I have a staff of X amount of people. How am I making sure that, we're continuing to grow, and I'm having those necessary conversations that everybody on my team wants to have: raise, bonus, promotion, growth, leadership, development, right? Like, that's the whole other side of being a CEO, being an entrepreneur. So at Legacy Classic, it was 2021. Actually, it was at Mike's house. We were watching a game. This was around the same time that Don Mocker was either going to Howard or already at Howard. And we were just thinking about what it would take for top recruits to really choose an HBCU. Mike just had this idea. And he was like, we should do a invitational tournament with HBCUs and teams and see if we can grow it and build it to, be one of the premier invitation tournaments for collegiate basketball. And thinking about where we wanted to start, we were like, let's start it at home. We felt like that was an amazing way to expose the next generation of folks at home, expose them to HBCUs as a way to expose HBCU culture to the tri-state area, into the next generation. It's like a mini homecoming of sorts, right? And I don't just mean like homecoming in regards to like an HBCU, because yes, it does feel like that, but it's also like a homecoming from a standpoint of like, we are literally coming home. We are seeing friends and family from home, people that we grew up with, people that we hoop with, a community that pours so much into us. Some final advice that I would give to those who are looking to get the call is do the work, right? Do what you say you're gonna do. Do not fake it. Do not try to phone it in. Do not try to finesse it. Oftentimes, a lot of leaders and people in those type of positions, they can feel it. They can even see it sometimes. But really do what you say you're gonna do, because they're able to trust that you will deliver on what is needed.